Do you have a lot of pot plants and find it difficult to maintain due to the weeds and grass overgrowing them? Come along with us and we'll show you an easy and tidier way of looking after your plants. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back to the channel. So after many years, I finally got the opportunity to fix up this mess with my pot plants. So we moved in here just over 8.5 years ago, and I put the pot plants here temporarily and because there was nowhere else to put them, but they've now become permanent. And so in more recent times, I built the screen fence and I put a piece of plastic down and put the pot plants on top of that, hoping that the grass will stop growing through. But unfortunately, the grass is growing over the plastic and weeds are growing in between. So I need to fix this problem up. And so I thought about a better solution might be to have some kind of shelving. But I looked around and tried to source a shelving that allowed water to flow through. So like a wire. But all I found was timber, and timber wouldn't be good here because it will rot. So then I came up with the solution of making my own wire shelving. And so I went to Priority Steel and bought some sheeting, some mesh, which is 3 metre by 2.4 metre, and the squares were 50 mil apart, and the actual thickness of steel is 3.15 millimetres. So I made up a couple just to see how it looked like, and they look brilliant. So now I'm going to show you how I've done it, and then I'm going to fix it to the wall, and then we're going to relocate these pot plants, take all the weeds out, put some new soil and put them in a bigger pot and place them on the shelving. So I will put a single shelf here and I'll put a double shelf just beyond the fence. So we do have pot plants across the other side and there's a fair amount here. And I have a variety of different plants, mainly burrowangs, which I love very much, and I'll explain more about that later. So now I'll get into it and I'll show you how I made these wire shelves. So this is the mesh, it's quite big. I had this delivered, I couldn't get it myself. So this is 3 metres wide by 2.4 metre. So we're going to cut that in half and make 2 lots of 1200s. And so I got my daughter Marion to work out and calculate how we're going to make this size. So the side here that sits against the back wall is 290 mil. The top section, which the pot plants sit on, is 390, and the return angle going back to the bottom of the wall is 486 mil. So all up, those measurements come to 1,166 mil. So we have a remainder of 34, and that 34 mil we're going to return back just on the bottom here. So this section will hold it in place and it doesn't fall out. Okay, so now I'll mark out the mesh 1200, I'll set up the grinder, put on my PPE and cut it. Okay, so the grinder I'm going to use is a Makita. I've had this for about 10 years. I found that it's really good. It doesn't shake much, very steady. It's a 4-inch, and the disc I'm going to use, the cutting disc, is an Irwin, and it's a 1.2 metal cutting disc. Okay, so now the edges are a little bit sharp, so we just want to get rid of that so we don't hurt ourselves. So we'll just give it a quick grind. The first section, we're going to start off just here. We're going to go across 486 mil. We'll just mark that. 486 is just past this piece of steel going that way. Now the next measurement is 390. So we've already done the calculation here. So 486 plus 390 is 876. So I'll just mark that, 876. Okay, so this is the last section, 1166, and that section is what returns back and stops this from falling out. Okay, so I'll just mark the other end, and then I'm going to get a straight edge, and then we'll bend this up. So first, I'm just going to bend this side, the lip that holds the angle in place. And what I'm going to do is just, on that mark, bend this just slightly. You've got to do this in probably 3 stages, so just bend it slightly. So you can use a multi-grip or you can use pliers. I'm using the multi-grip because I can do 2 of these steel bars at a time. So now I'll just go back to this corner before I go too far across, and I'll bend it even more. I've got it close to about 90 degree now. So it's a little tedious, but it doesn't take too much effort. Okay, Marion, if you can come around this side. Okay, so that's all done. Now I'll grab a timber as a straight edge. Okay, so now I'll stand on this. Mary, can you just bring that steel to me? Just slightly, yep, now come across. That's it. Now just fix the timber up for me. The timber will slide because we're putting a lot of pressure on this timber, and I'll just keep moving across. Meredith, if you can help me. Okay, done. All right, we'll just do it again. Just a little bit more. Just form it up roughly to about 90 degree. And there we go. Okay, now with a hammer, we'll now just straighten it out, keeping the timber there. And all I do is just hit on the bottom, just to make that a sharp 90 degree bend. So try to be careful not to distort it too much. Just keep moving that timber onto your mark. And that's it, that's the first section bent. So now Marion and I will bend the next section. Okay, Marion, if you can bring that to me, just come around this side. Okay, next one. Just readjust that timber. Okay, and next one. Okay. Okay, that's better. Just give me a sec. That's it. Very good. All right, so we'll just do that again. Much better. Just make sure it's on the mark. Okay, so we're just trying to get it to roughly 90 degree. That's it. All right, so now I'll just hammer this one in place like we did the last one. It's looking pretty good. It's at 90 degree. So now we've got to change this section into an angle to fit under here. So we're going to just do that manually, not with a hammer. Okay, so see how I've got that angle coming down now? So I'm basically just putting pressure just on this line here, and so the horizontal and the vertical. Okay, so we're done. Now, Marion, if you can come around this side, what we're going to do is lift this wire underneath this first section of 90 degree. So just keep that in place while I push it in. So that's it. All we've got to do is bend these to stop it from hurting anyone. Now I'm going to connect these two sections together. So this section is the back and this is the angle. And I'm going to tie it with a 2mm wire. And it's around about 150 mil, 6 inches long. And I'll just weave this through and then connect it. So basically I just tie that on. Then with using pliers, I'll just crimp it by turning and tightening. There we go. And that's now connected together. Okay, so now I'll just cut this off just for safety purposes. And it's done. Okay, so that's it. This turned out really, really well. Probably the best of the three, I'd say. So yeah, just a little bit of a technique trying to get that right. So now when the pot plants sit on this section here, this section will be fastened to the wall. And when the pressure's put down here, that'll sit in this little section here to stop it from moving. Okay, so now we prepare the wall. So we take all the pot plants out of the way and we just clean up that area and ready to install these. Look at that, we've even got a parsley plant and the seeds are almost ready for harvesting. I'll put that away and let them dry out a little bit. Mariah, come here. Look what I found. Do you know what this is?
No.
Help me carry it. This is almost extinct. Very soon will be with lithium. Okay, so I'll do the brush cutting with this Bush Ranger brush cutter. So I've done a video on this particular product, did a review on it, and I'll put a link below if you want to see it in action. That's a lot cleaner now. What I might do is actually get my tractor, grab some mulch and place it here because there's a lot of dirt and wet soil here so that we can work. This will give a nice coverage for the grass to grow back as well. Okay, this is looking really, really good. So what do you think, Mariah?
It looks good.
Yeah, it's a big improvement. Now when you water them, it's going to be a lot easier, or when we water them. But you're the champion, you like to water them every day. Anyway, so now it's getting a bit hot, so we're going to give up for today and we'll come back tomorrow and fix the shelving on. Because it's so hot outside, we decided to go into the hydro pool today instead of tomorrow. And so the water is now at 31 degrees. Beautiful, perfect for doing hydro exercises. So I'll get into it. Okay, it's another beautiful day and it's going to get hot again. So we've started a little bit earlier. And now, so the next step is to connect the shelving to the wall. We'll just line this up just for aesthetic purposes, just line it up with the fence. And we're just going to go to this brick here. So it's just going to be off the ground. We can't put it too high because we're going to put another shelving up here and it's just going to be way too high. So basically I'm just going to mark it every 300 mil, every foot. There's going to be a lot of weight on this shelving, so I'm going to put a lot of these clips on. So basically I'm just going to mark it between the bricks in the mortar. Okay, so I'm going to mark it every 300 mil. Time to drill the holes. I will be using my Bosch electrical drill. Also, I'm going to be using a 6.5 mil masonry drill bit, and I'll also be using an 8 mil plug. Now, why 8 mil with 6.5 mil drill bit? Because I'm going to be drilling through mortar. Now, mortar, if you drill through, does blow open a little bit more than what you would in a brick. So I'm choosing to drill into the mortar and just put a lot more screws. I'll be squeezing these plugs in to make sure it's tight and that the shelving doesn't come off. Now, I could drill through the brick, but I don't want this to be a permanent fixture, just in case one day I do want to take it back off. Okay, so that's all drilled in. So now I'll put the plugs in, but just hit them slowly and they will go in. Okay, so this section of the plug has a taper on it, and that's the section you put into the hole. This section does not. It's going to be a lot harder to put that in. So we just place that in and just slowly hammer it in. Now to get them in further, you can use another plug. Okay, so with the screws, I'm going to be using the Zenith brand, and this is just the stitching screw, timber stitching screw, and it's an 8 gauge by 30 millimeter. Now, there is a bit of a problem trying to reach those screws through this wire. So what I've done is got a 6-inch, so 150 mil drill bits, and these are the Irwin brand, but the 150 is not going to be long enough. It's just nowhere near long enough. So what I've done is gone and got an Irwin extension, and that basically one sits into the other. So you just basically sit that in there like that, and I'll put it into my impact cordless drill, and that should be long enough. So I'll just place these clips in place. Now the clips do have a big hole and a small hole, so make sure you go through the smaller hole because the big one will be useless. The screw will just go straight through that. So just put the smaller hole this end. So now I'll just get the girls to lift this up gently so the clips don't fall out of place. So just lift it up gently, girls, until I can get myself in position. Now, I'm not going to put these in tight yet. This is just as tricky as I thought it would be, because you've got to go straight through that wire and there's a bit of a distance. Okay, so this is now all done. So now we'll just go through and just put the other two shelving on. So this is all finished now. We've done these two shelvings, and also we've put a few clips on the bottom to lock that in so the bottoms don't push out. So now it's locked in. We did have the girls standing on this earlier and it took their weight. So combined they would be roughly, I think, about 90 kilos and it took it beautifully. So the pot plants are nowhere near that weight. And I've got Marion behind the camera saying, okay, so we're in the midday sun and it's screaming hot, so we might have a break for a couple of hours, let the sun come over the house a little and give us some shade. Okay, we're going to get back into it. It's still pretty warm, but there's a nice breeze coming through and hopefully that'll keep us cool as the sun starts to fall. So now we're going to transfer the plants into bigger pots, or just put some more soil in the pots that are already there and just take out all the weeds and grass. So it's a bit of a risk on a hot day to transfer a plant from one pot to another. So we're going to be really, really careful with this and just do it as quick as possible. And as we're doing them, we'll get Marion to put water on the pots and just rehydrate the plants and just try to keep them out of the sun for a little bit. So we have many different type of plants here and some trees as well. So we do have the macadamia, we do have a pine nut pine tree, we have mulberries, 2 lots, we have a cedar tree, but we also have a rose bush, a couple of them, red and white roses, and we have a heap of Japanese box hedges, which were given to us by Habibi Pierre. He gave us cuttings from his own plants and he put them in little cups and they've grown beautifully. So now we need to transfer them over to a proper pot. But the plant that I love most, which I mentioned before, is the burrowang. And this is the burrowang, and I have a lot of burrowangs here. And these are grown from our own property. The burrowang is a native to New South Wales on the east coast, and the word burrowang comes from the Durrock Aboriginals here in this Sydney region. And it's from the Macrozamia species, and there's roughly about 40 different types. So these bigger plants we're going to transplant into the ground in the coming months. So we're just going to put these on the side, and so the shelving will only be for the smaller pots. Okay, so now we'll get into it. Thanks, Marion. Okay, so Marion, just pull all the grass out of that. So this one here, the plant is pretty tall and it really does need a new pot. You can see the root coming out here. That's not a good thing. Burrowangs like to shoot their roots downwards and deep, so they need to have a big pot. Wow, this looks fantastic. This is great. Guys, what do you think?
It looks good.
You did a great job. And now we don't miss out when we're watering, we don't miss some plants because the grass is covering them. I may have to put some of these burrowangs in the ground. So these are big enough and there's plenty here. So in the next few months when it does cool down, I'll just start scattering around the property and have these beautiful burrowangs growing everywhere, just like we had in Bateman's Bay. I loved it. So I'd like to mention also the soil. We got it from Lower Mountains Landscape Supply, and that soil was a potty mix, very rich, and also got sand in it to help the water drain through the pot. And so this is a very high quality, and if you're looking for a place to buy good quality sand, soil, even cement products, pots, Lower Mountains Landscape Supplies are really good people and they'll look after you, and they're in Blaxland. I'd also like to mention that the mesh that we bought from Priority Steel was a very high quality. The galvanized 3 metre by 2.4 worked perfect. And so if you're looking for any steel, Priority Steel's in Wetherill Park and they'll look after you as well. And I will put a link for all the products I've used and also the companies in the descriptions below. The last thing I'd like to do is thank my girls. They did a great job, especially in the heat in the last last 2 days. So we've been experiencing a lot of cold weather in Sydney for the last couple of years, a lot of rain, and now it's starting to heat up again. So I think that the cycle will change for us, and next year will be a hotter year. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any comments, please leave them below and I will get back to you. And I'd ask you, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button and share this video, and there's many more videos to come. Thanks, guys. What are you doing?